Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 39, Wolf and Tiger. A charcoal fire burned in the hall, making the room hot. Chen Yang had already been kneeling for a little less than an hour. Xiao Qiye sat at the head seat reading military books. Imperial army generals of all ranks were also kneeling beyond the curtain. It was silent, both on the inside and outside. As the saying goes, if the general has yet to have the prestige to speak of, then he should first awe and intimidate to boost his prestige. When Xiao Qiye took over the imperial army 5 years ago, he had put on an initial show of strength and power upon assuming office. What he wanted was the absolute authority to command this pack of heroes. In these 5 years, he had been fair in meting out rewards and punishments. He never skimped on the money that was meant to be paid out to the imperial army. Not only did he not give less, he even spent much more to make up for any deficiency. He was very generous to his subordinates. Yet, that cloak of his was still the same one that his eldest sister-in-law had sent over 3 years ago. The autumn hunt enabled the imperial army to hold their heads high. It made them renown, overshadowing the 8 great training divisions. For a moment, they had the world at their feet. These soldiers, who have been oppressed for a long time in the Chu capital, used to put on a submissive front before the 8 great training divisions. Now, they even dared to order the 8 great training divisions around. This was not a good sign. Complacency would lead one to get too carried away by success. Xiao Qiye needed an opportunity to knock some senses into the imperial army. And what Tan Taihu did today was exactly that. Chen Yang did not dare to raise his head. Xiao Qiye rapped on the table, and Chen Yang immediately got up to refill the tea for Xiao Qiye. Once the cup was filled, he kneeled back down again. Xiao Qiye never said a word the entire night, so Chen Yang kneeled on the ground all night. Many words left unsaid, could make one feel more ashamed than if it had been said. Xiao Qiye had to attend morning court the next day. After dressing and tidying himself up, he said to Chen Yang, "There's no need to follow me today. Take a break." Chen Yang had kneeled until both his legs were numbed. With his hands on the ground, he kowtowed and said in a hoarse voice, "Young master." He had always addressed Xiao Qiye as viceroy. This address came right from the heart. Sure enough, Xiao Qiye stopped in his tracks. But still, he did not look back. Chen Yang kowtowed again and said, "I implore young master to punish me." Xiao Qiye raised his hand to signal to those waiting upon him to leave. It was only when there was no one else in the hall that he turned aside to look at Chen Yang. If a man has done nothing wrong, then what punishment is there to speak of? The sweat on Chen Yang's forehead dripped past his eyes. "This subordinate has realized the errors of his ways," he said. After a long silence, Xiao Qiye said, "These years, Zhao Hui has followed De Gur on war expeditions to the frontier. He has been climbing the ranks. Within 5 years, he should receive his own residence and a conferred title. You are both good men that father himself picked out. Why is it that he, Zhao Hui, could have that kind of honor and glory while you, Chen Yang, have to follow and rot away with a hoodlum?" Chen Yang's lips paled. He said, "How would this subordinate dare to think so? The heir apparent has his own strengths, but it's young master who is my pillar. Zhao Hui and I are both brothers of the same clan. We share will and woe together. It'd be best if you truly understand this principle." Xiao Qiye said, "Brothers who fight among themselves and family who draw swords at each other are all rotten to the core. Outsiders don't even have to make their moves for you to meet your end before them. You followed me and remained in Chu capital, leaving all the matters back at home to Zhao Hui to look after. His younger sister married the vice director of the Ministry of Rights, and you are the one who filled in the role of family from her maternal home and backed her up during spring festival and other festivities. You can contend with will and spirit if you want to make great contributions and accomplish great tasks, but not so when it comes to moral principles. It's having righteous ardor and heroic spirit that makes a good man. What's your fear and hurry to compete with him? Zhao Hui wouldn't do what happened yesterday because he has De Geur's dignity to consider. You are now the chief of the Imperial Army's guards, yet you still need to rely on that bit of trick to inspire confidence in others. For that bit for gratification, you would even let others trample over your master's dignity. Tantai, who came from Zongbo. You know that, but you still swapped him to yesterday's roster so that he could vent his anger and resentment. So, what is it, Chen Yang? Have you been following me to fool around to the point that you now have to play games like this to win others over? For this moment of satisfaction, you would not even hesitate to dent your master's dignity. Stung by remorse and self-reproach, Chen Yang lowered his head and said, I've let master down. You've let yourself down. Xiao Qi suddenly said in an indifferent voice, come back on rotation duty once you've figured it out. Let Gu Jin follow me the coming days. Dazed, Chen Yang kneeled on the ground and raised his head to watch as Xiao Qi lifted the curtain and stepped out. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Shen Zequan finally had a night of sleep last night. At present, he was standing beside the horse carriage, puffing out warm air as he watched the gerfalcon hover in the snowy sky. Xiao Qi stepped out of the door and got up the horse carriage. Gu Jin took the horsewhip and looked at Shen Zequan. Shen Zequan did not look at him. The curtain partially opened, and Xiao Qi signaled to him with his eyes. Shen Zequan immediately felt the stares on his back as the Imperial Army, who had been freezing in the courtyard the entire night, all looked at him. He smiled at Xiao Qi, then made his way up. Gu Jin drove, and the carriage started to sway. Xiao Qi handed a hand warmer to Shen Zequan. When Shen Zequan accepted it, Xiao Qi stuck the back of his hand to the back of Shen Zequan's hand. So cold? Xiao Qi said. Shen Zequan raised his finger to push away Xiao Qi's hand. He leaned against the wall and held the hand warmer. Xiao Qi said, you don't look too happy. Shen Zequan warmed up his hands and said, I'm happy. He looked at Xiao Qi and said with a smile, it makes me happy that the second young master spoke up for me and helped me out of a predicament. Xiao Qi said, this second young master did not do it for anyone. That may be so. Shen Zequan said, now that the prestige has been established, then when are you going to bestow them favors? There aren't many days left for me to be a guard. If you want to use me, you must hurry. Xiao Qi looked at him and said nothing. Shen Zequan lifted his chin slightly in a pose similar to a relaxing posture. He exhaled and said after a pause, I'm not your match when it comes to governing others. Shen Lanzhou is a good target. Put him before you, and you can defend yourself and put on a deliberate show of strength to intimidate the tiger. Maybe he can even warm your bed. This kind of killing three birds with one stone is truly hard to find. Second young master Xiao, you sure are impressive. There was a cacophony of human voices outside the carriage while the atmosphere within the carriage grew increasingly heavy. Both men were just a few inches apart, but they seemed to be separated by a natural chasm. When the carriage arrived at its destination, Gu Jin tactfully did not say a word to disturb them. Having warmed his hands up, Shen Zequan put the hand warmer back on the small table and said, what a pity. Xiao Qi said, what? Everyone thinks you enjoy yourself to your heart's content every night. Shen Zequan licked the tip of his teeth and said unhurriedly to him, who would have known that second young master Xiao is as diligent and conscientious as Liege Hui? I haven't even touched your saliva before, let alone talk about being fucked by you. With that, he made to lift the curtain and get off the carriage. He did not expect Xiao Qi to hook his waist belt. That's right. Xiao Qi smiled playfully. Look at how eager you are to cross swords on the bed. I shall comply with your wish. Shen Zequan said, I don't want anyone with such fierce eyes. The curtain swayed. He had already gotten off the carriage. Xiao Qi's fingertips turned up empty. He waved them as if wanting for more.
Asterisk asterisk asterisk. After the incident with Tan Hui, the imperial army became less ostentatious. All of them tucked their tails between their legs and behaved themselves, thus reverting to the way they were before the autumn hunt. Chen Yang was even more prudent now and no longer dared to close an eye when others stirred up trouble. He had previously hurt his foot in Liege and the cold was harsh in the Chu capital a few days later, so his foot would hurt for each day he was on duty. One day, after dinner, Xiao Qiye threw Chen Yang several bottles of medicinal paste. When Chen Yang went back and opened them, they turned out to be the valuable paste that Xiao Jiming had gotten from the venerable Liege a few years back. He could not help but reproach himself again. From then on, he was even more diligent in his work. On the other side, Tan Hui went home and found himself in dire straits just a few days later. Everyone in his family was dead, yet he had adopted 3 children from Zongbo, all of whom lived on his salary. He was not married either, so he had no wife to manage affairs at home. All the money he received every month was spent until nothing was left. At present, he was in a short supply of rice and noodles, and he also had to prepare for the new year, too. He was a veteran from the Deng province and he had many friends in Chu capital. But all along, he had always been the one to take care of others. Now that it was his turn, he could not bring himself to borrow money from others, so he tightened his belt to feed the children. But this was, after all, not a long-term solution. Tan Hui was even thinking of being a loan shark and tagging along with others to collect debts when Chen Yang appeared on his doorsteps for a visit. The new year is right around the corner, Chen Yang put down the money and said, "The viceroy still remembers that there are 3 children in your family." Tan Hui turned his face away as he sat on the chair and said, "Since I'm no longer a soldier of the imperial army, then there's no reason for me to accept money from the imperial army." "You are truly a bona fide tiger," Chen Yang said with a severe countenance. "Why are you still angry with the viceroy? You struck out at Shenzhen with many people watching that day. Where is your respect for the viceroy? Being too lax in military discipline is a major taboo. You have been a vice commander for so long. Don't tell me you don't understand that." Tan Hui said, "What can I do? Whenever I see the 8th son of the Shens, I'll remember my parents." Chen Yang sighed and said, "Even so, you shouldn't have humiliated him and, consequently, the viceroy in the process. You know the viceroy's temperament after following him for a few years, so why did you still shoot your mouth off?" Tan Hui rubbed his head. Chen Yang continued, "I was at fault, too. I knew you were rash, but I didn't stop you. Admit your mistakes if you make one, and accept your punishment if you receive one. A real man can take temporary setbacks and adapt to circumstances. Must you go to the extent of quitting before you think yourself a real hero? Then what can I do? I have already handed in the authority token." When Tan Hui spoke to this point, he felt aggrieved and said, "I've followed the viceroy for 5 years and worked myself to the bone during the autumn hunt. It wasn't easy for the imperial army to finally make a name for itself. I get afraid when I see that fox going in and out the whole day. The way he looks. I was really afraid that the viceroy's future would be ruined. I was getting anxious, and I hate him to death." Ding Tao said something about how it's not his fault. "That's right, who doesn't know that? But who could stand it if they were in my shoes? It was my parents and siblings who died, not a dog by the roadside." Chen Yang was silent, too. Tan Hui stamped heavily on the ground and wiped his face haphazardly. The scar-faced man still shed tears when he recalled the past. He choked with sobs and said, "Anyone would not be happy to see a person they hate right in front of them, let alone someone with such enmity. That year when Zongbo troops were defeated, Chen Yang, all of us who survived had our families broken up and ruined, while we ourselves barely escaped by the skin of our teeth. Who's going to take pity on us? Look at those 3 children in my house. They haven't even begun to recognize a few words before they were turned into orphans who have to dig mud under the hooves of the Bianchi cavalry's horses in order to live. We are all lowly creatures. Chen Yang patted him and waited for him to calm down a little before saying, but now that you have joined the imperial army, the viceroy is king. Husui, 5 years ago, when the viceroy cleaned up the imperial army, he had wanted to take in non-native military households like you guys, but the Ministry of War did not agree. Do you still remember what the viceroy said? Taihu's shoulders shook slightly. Chen Yang continued, isn't the reason you still want to be a soldier today because of what the viceroy said that day? The feuds of our families has yet to be avenged, and the humiliation of our nation has yet to be redressed. The imperial army will one day ride the horses out of the mountain pass. Isn't killing the enemies with your own hands then much more gratifying than blaming another man today? How is it that you've forgotten this all with the passage of time? Taihu said, how would I dare to forget? I've never forgotten it for even a day. I gave this life to the viceroy to use as he wished, all for that one day to come. Then it's all good, isn't it? Chen Yang got up and pushed the money to Taihu. Brothers don't bear each other grudges overnight. The viceroy treats us as brothers. This money is from the viceroy himself. After you've celebrated the Spring Festival, return to your original squad, hang up the squad commander authority token, and do your duties well. With mixed feelings, Taihu saw Chen Yang out of the door. When Chen Yang returned, he saw Shen Zequan. Both men greeted each other on the veranda. As he lifted the curtain and went in, Shen Zequan knew that the matter was done. Shen Zequan was bored to death as he watched the falling snow. A vicious man like this could be disguised as fake even if he was real, and be made real even if he was fake. Others simply would not be able to tell whether the expression he put on was happiness or anger, nor would they be able to tell if he was being sincere or hypocritical. It did not take long before Chen Yang came out again. He lifted the curtain, nodded at Shen Zequan, and said, the viceroy is waiting inside for you to have a meal together. Shen Zequan turned around and saw Xiao Qiye looking at him. End chapter. Note. 1 Liege Xiahui, also known as Zhan Huo, was a man of eminent virtue, and was said on one occasion to have held a lady in his lap without the slightest imputation on his moral character. Tu Sui is a suffix that means child, or sonny. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I was an outcast Liege. Chapter 40, Tearing and Biting. Fresh vegetables were a rare sight in winter, and so the ones that fetched a high price in Chu capital at the moment were all green vegetables. Having been rewarded by Liege Unhung, Xiao Qiye's dinner table tonight included a plate of crisp, shredded cucumber. Side dishes that accompany the main dishes help to invigorate the spleen and eliminate toxins. Xiao Qiye scooped up a bowl of hot soup and pushed it towards Shen Zequan. You've been standing outside for so long. Warm yourself up and have a refreshing meal before you take a rest. As the saying goes, Shen Zequan wiped his hands and took a seat. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. So, what instructions does the second young master have? Plenty. Xiao Qiye said. We'll talk as we eat. Both men lifted their chopsticks together. There was no one else inside the room. The 2 bowls of rice were quickly eaten clean, as was the plate of shredded cucumber that they split between themselves. Neither of them touched the meat dishes. The Spring Festival is right around the corner, and my Shifu is coming to the capital. Xiao Qiye drank the soup. If Jigang Shifu is free, we can arrange for both elders to meet. A New Year celebration, or a Hungmen banquet. You have to make it clear. Shen Zequan set down the chopsticks. My Shifu doesn't stake his life on games. New Year celebration. Xiao Qiye said. There are only the 2 of them left in this generation, and they have not seen each other in so many years. Sure. I'll prepare a big gift later and ask Shifu to come out of obscurity. Shenzequan had eaten his fill. Seeing him get up, Xiao Qiye said, "Rest in my room as usual tonight." Shenzequan looked back and smiled as he said, "Naturally, I won't run. We'll take our turns in the bath. Take your time. I'll go first." With that, he lifted the curtain and headed inside to wash his face and rinse his mouth. Xiao Qiye called for the servants to clear the table. As he stood by the window, he saw that it was snowing outside. He turned his head and saw Shenzequan's silhouette through the hazy curtain fabric. Shenzequan removed his outer garment. It was as if he was peeling away a layer of coarse shell to reveal the fresh, tender, and succulent flesh within. When he lowered his head to undo his waist belt, the curve of his nape danced with tangerine yellow light as if to add a velvety touch of exquisiteness to that already smooth part. Looking at him through the curtain fabric was just like scratching an itch through a boot. It magnified that temptation, which was brimming with desire, and scattered it, sending it wandering aimlessly through his limbs and bones. It tickled him so badly that it made him irritable and gave him certain violent thoughts. The man being like jade himself counted for nothing. What bothered Xiao Qiye the most was Shenzequan's desire. That pair of eyes. And that kind of smile. Whether unconsciously done or by accident, he seemed to exude such sensual invitations that says, "Come and hug me. Come and touch me. Come and sweat it out with me to your heart's content." This desire was as unaggressive as a drizzle, but before he knew it, it had already invaded his mind. Shenzequan himself seemed oblivious to it. He retained another kind of indifference that was utterly opposed to lust as he breezily threw out this contradictory puzzle for others to think about. Xiao Qiye did not want to continue this line of thought. He was keenly aware that the eagle this time was not that easy to tame. He could only be his own master. He could not tolerate himself getting so easily and repeatedly aroused by his impulses. Xiao Qiye turned back his head, closed the window and went to the bath hall. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Both men slept on each side with a block in between. Their backs were to each other and their breathing was steady as if they had already fallen asleep. Xiao Qiye kept close to his thumb ring and thought of many matters. This thumb ring did not belong to him. At first, it belonged to Fen Yishan of the Suotian Pass. When Fen Yishan died in battle, he left the thumb ring to Zoqian Kaiu. Wearing this thumb ring, Zoqian Kaiu made a name for himself during the battle at Tianfei Watchtower, where he shot an arrow at his wife, killing her. It was because of this that Zoqian Kaiu's hair turned white, and also because of this that he never recovered from the setback. He had achieved fame and glory, but the person was dead deep inside. There was no way Zoqian Kaiu could go on the battlefield again. His hands, which once made significant achievements at Tianfei Watchtower, could no longer wield the bow freely. As a child, Xiao Qiye had followed Zoqian Kaiu to ask him, "How did you end up shooting your wife to death?" Zoqian Kaiu sanded the bowstring and asked, "Do you really want to be a general?" Xiao Qiye nodded. Zoqian Kaiu said, "Then don't start a family. A general dying in 100 battles is actually not that terrifying. What's terrifying is that the general, in all likelihood, will come to be confronted with difficult choices. What you want and what you must shoulder, are all different things." Zoqian Kaiu looked at the bow in desolation. The grassland wind caressed his white hair. He said in a daze, "I hope you will never be trapped in such a desperate situation. When a man reaches that stage, he will die no matter what he chooses. You saved tens of thousands of people at Tianfei Watchtower." Xiao Qiye leaned over the railing. "Why didn't you want to be conferred a title?" Zoqian Kaiu laughed and said, "Because I died in that battle." It was not until Xiao Qiye grew up to be a youth that he understood Zoqian Kaiu's words. In the battle at Tianfei Watchtower, Zoqian Kaiu's beloved wife was taken prisoner. Between opening the gates to surrender or shutting the gates to fight to the death, he could only choose one. Zoqian Kaiu chose neither. He headed out of the city all by himself and drew his bow to shoot his beloved wife to death. Legend had it that the shot was the steadiest shot he had ever fired in his life. He hit his target amongst countless people. The rain was pouring that night. No one knew if he had cried himself hoarse, or when his hair turned white. When the soldiers retreated at dawn, Zhou Qianqiu stood upon the white expanse of bones to collect his wife's corpse and bury her. From then on, his reputation of the thunder sinking the jade stage, Zhou Qianqiu, spread far and wide. Those who respected him would also curse him behind his back. A man who was that heartless would only make the common man think of him as a scourge, as if generals like him were all naturally born to be this cold-blooded. Xiao Qiye treasured this thumb ring very much. But he also feared it. He was afraid that he would one day be caught in a dilemma, too. So, he had never spoken of like lightly. Chen Yang had been with him for so long, and he still did not know what Xiao Qiye was fond of. The wine he loved. The food he liked. The clothing he preferred. The truth was so mixed up with falsehood that no one could really tell. Liege, Liege. It was as if only this word was the destiny he had no way of hiding. He already had a taste of being in someone else's control because of desire. So how could he court trouble for himself again? Xiao Qiye sat up soundlessly and looked at Shen Zequin. He raised his hand. He just had to exert some force, and he could smother this desire to death. Shen Zequin looked like he was having a nightmare. As he frowned, his temples were both drenched in cold sweat. His back was already a little damp. Xiao Qiye bent over to look at him and saw a Shen Zequin he had never seen before. Shen Zequin was trapped in the tide of blood. He was soaking wet all over. He touched himself. It was blood. The dream repeated itself every single day. He felt as if he was going mad. All of a sudden, Shen Zequin gave a few subtle twitches. His tightly pursed lips slowly loosened apart to mutter something in his sleep amidst his outbreak of cold sweat. He was this helpless. Something else from that deep, heavy fear suddenly dawned on Xiao Qiye. He scrutinized Shen Zequin, like a massive beast observing its prey. Shen Zequin was not invulnerable. Other than that unexplainable probing and dreading of each other, what they had was an even more inexplicable empathy between fellow sufferers. Shen Zequin felt weary. He would no longer cry in his dreams, or strive to dig through the corpses. He had seen through the nightmare. He knew Jimu was dead. Hurry up. It was as if Shen Zequin was an apathetic bystander. Let's get this over and done with. He urged it on brutally and ruthlessly, even wanting this blood to spill even more, and this snow to fall even harder. How else could he lay bare this nightmare? He no longer had any fear. This flesh and marrow had already been soaked rotten in the blood. He was a stray dog feeding on rotting flesh. The filthy water and abhorrence were merely evidence of his existence. Shen Zequin suddenly opened his eyes and reached out to put his hands against Xiao Qiye's chest. In just a few moments, he asked calmly while dripping with cold sweat, "Can't sleep?" Xiao Qiye's chest was scalding hot. He could feel the iciness of Shen Zequin's palms through the thin fabric. He replied, "I ate too much." Shen Zequin said, "A timid person would have been scared to death if he saw a person right upon opening his eyes in the middle of the night." "I heard you calling me," Xiao Qiye said without batting an eyelid. "I have to determine if you were cursing me. If I curse you, it wouldn't be in my dreams." Scalded by Xiao Qiye's body temperature, Shen Zequin wanted to retract his fingers. Unexpectedly, Xiao Qiye pressed his hands back and asked, "Are you cold?" Shen Zequin's temples were still soaked. He smiled and said, "Yeah. I'm so cold." He had reverted to that seductive Shen Lanzhou. He did not care the least whether Xiao Qiye had been tempted. This kind of ability was innate, it came to him naturally. He was a scum. Xiao Qiye gripped his hands and pinned them down at the head of the bed. Sniffing his scent in the darkness, he said, "You sleep in my bed. You know very well what I think of every night. You said that I'm impressive." Shen Lanzhou, the impressive one is actually you. What's to be done then? Shen Zequin still sounded a little hoarse. He said nonchalantly, I didn't do anything. I want to do it. Xiao Qiye bent his head down to stare at him. I want to do you. Choose some other ways to let me die. Shen Zequin let him clasp both of his hands together. It's too much of a failure to die in bed. I changed my mind. Xiao Qiye caressed aside Shen Zequin's damp hair with a freed hand and looked at him as if he was scrutinizing a jewel he had bought. I don't want you to die. Shen Zequin said, I'd advise you not to bite this neck. Lanzhou. Xiao Qiye said his name with a sigh and jest, will you let me off even if I didn't? Shen Zequin looked at him. Xiao Qiye asked, is it such a pleasure to tease me? It is. Shen Zequin sensed Xiao Qiye gradually drawing closer to him. It pleasures me to see the pitiful look of a little wolf at a loss. Then, we can be even more pleasured. Xiao Qiye said, the Empress Dowager has been putting up with it without making any moves. What did she promise to give you? Throw it away. I'll give you much, much more. Shen Zequin laughed, I guess freedom is not included in the list of things you're giving me. Second young master Xiao, how is it that you never know that everything you want is all written in your eyes? You want to lock me up right this moment, am I right? I want to make a gold chain. Xiao Qiye said, it's too much of a pity for this neck not to be adorned with something. Dog chains were originally used to leash wolves. Shen Zequin was so close to Xiao Qiye that he could hear the latter's breathing. He continued, I want to put a gold chain around your neck, too. For each word you utter, I'll yank it once. Let's not. Xiao Qiye raised his eyebrows. With your salary, you won't be able to afford it even if you empty your pockets. The tips of their noses were about to bump into each other. Xiao Qiye's thumb ring was pressing against Zequin's wrist, which had already reddened from his grip. Xiao Qiye said, since it's... Shen Zequin raised his head and kissed him on the lips. Icy derision followed right on the heels of this encounter of soft lips. Want to go wild with abandon? The expression in Shen Zequin's eyes was deranged as he murmured, do you dare? Do you want to tear me apart, second young master Xiao? I don't care. The tightly wound string that was Xiao Qiye's limit snapped with a twang, and those already tempestuous waves of emotions gushed forth with a roar. Amidst this mocking and instigation, he ruthlessly pinned down Shen Zequin and kissed him back as if he was biting him. Lust interweaved with murderous intent. Hatred entangled with pity. Exactly who between the two of them was the more detestable and pitiable one? Tongues intertwined in this wet kiss, where Xiao Qiye kissed Shen Zequin, and Shen Zequin gave all he could to respond. There was the sensual sound of licking between their lips and teeth as desire burned up two peculiar men. Xiao Qiye suddenly released his grip on Shen Zequin's wrist and supported his back up, wanting them to press against each other intimately, skin to skin. This was mutual loathing. Tainting the other party with the filthy stain that was their own. Letting hatred turn into a bond that could not be torn apart. It was too much of an agony to live like this, being the only ones who could hear their own howls in the night. So, why not come together and tear each other bloody? Let this visceral intimacy transform into a form of solace they could rely on. This life was already rotten enough. End chapter. Note, Hangmen banquet is a banquet set up with the aim of murdering a guest. Refers to a famous incident in 206 BC when future Han Emperor Liu Bang escaped attempted murder by his rival Xiang Yu. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 1, I Was an Outcast Liege. Chapter 41, Lanzhou. Clothing was shoved up high, and skin that radiated out like moonlight felt icy cold to the touch. There were no caresses, only the tearing apart of each other. The thick, tangible night melted away into an expanse of spring water, into a night of heated passion and intoxicating pleasure. Xiao Qiye scooped up This water. He struggled to prop himself up among the tidal waves of emotions and saw Shen Zequin's eyes as he gasped for breath. In this pair of eyes, there was none of the temperature of one drowning in lust. They even reflected his absurd behavior at this very moment. Xiao Qiye felt a wave of thrill cutting through him like a blade. He fondled Shen Zequin until he made him hot, until he made this water rage. He bound Shen Zequin from high in the clouds into the crooks of his arms and squashed him hard as he licked and nipped at him wantonly. Biting down on the back of Shen Zequin's neck was like taking in a mouthful of enchantment potion into his mouth. The night was thoroughly wet, and the bedding was soaked in sweat. Intertwining limbs thrashed around on the bed, and it was in these urgent collisions that Xiao Qiye gradually got a grasp on happiness. He progressed swiftly, surrendering himself in that mass of soft clouds, and hardening in the same mass of soft clouds. He pushed up hard silently against Shen Zequin's vital spot, so much that Shen Zequin had to strain to gulp even as his raised neck fearlessly exposed itself before Xiao Qiye's eyes. Xiao Qi kissed this neck and scooped up both of Shen Zequin's knees. He was no longer a hypocrite who acted as if he was not tempted by lust. He was an ordinary man who stormed the enemy's den and went in for the kill in the dark. He made it impossible for Shen Zequin to remember the Hashi sinkhole, and made it just as impossible for Shen Zequin to forget this intense merging of bodies. They had no life-saving straw to clutch at. This was a night of indulgence to break free of their misery. Pleasure blazed through their bodies like a raging inferno. Shen Zequin reached out for the headboard, and Xiao Qiye dragged him back and locked him in an embrace. "Go on, show me how feral you can get." Xiao Qiye whispered, "You want me to go wild with abandon, so how dare you run? Don't you want to see who is more savage?" "I'm not afraid." Shen Zequin's cheek chafed against the bedding as he closed his eyes and gasped for breath. The expression of pain, of being unable to take it, on this face was all captivating sights of seduction. How did he blossom into such a visage? Xiao Qiye pinched his chin and held it up to kiss him without letting him pant or rest. In the time it took for the sides on the back of his waist to go numbed, he came completely into him. Shen Zequin was still shuddering from the climactic high, but Xiao Qiye did not stop. He turned Shen Zequin over and thrust into him again. The cold wind howled endlessly outside the window and the suppressed sounds of panting cut through the darkness. Xiao Qiye dripped with sweat as he kissed Shen Zequin over and over again. He did not want to concede defeat. But he had already been conquered. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Xiao Qiye fell asleep. The ferocity and fury in his features had all dissolved away into a kind of displeasure from being brash. He held onto one of Shen Zequin's wrist, making it seem like both men were snuggling against each other on this winter night, consequently turning those merciless kisses into a scalding hot furnace. Outside, the snow fell for the entire night, drifting gently like willow catkins. The sound of wind was nowhere to be heard. When it was nearly daybreak, Shen Zequin extracted his wrist from Xiao Qiye's grip. Xiao Qiye's fingers chased after him, moving under the bedding. Chen Yang, who was outside the door, saw Shen Zequin come out of the room. "Military drill grounds," Shen Zequin said concisely. Chen Yang nodded. As he was about to make his way, he caught a glimpse of the injury on Shen Zequin's lips. He looked as if he was about to say a word but hesitated. Shen Zequin glanced at him and saw through what he was thinking, so he said, "The Jinyue's reorganization deployment order should be issued in the next few days. Thank you for your taking care of me during this period of time." Chen Yang said, "A few days earlier. What's over is over, there's no need to speak of it." Shen Zequin was gratuitously cold today. He said, "We will all be patrolling the Chu capital in the future, so it'll be inevitable for us to bump into each other. I'll act with caution, and I'd advise the various Imperial Army brothers to be prudent as well." Chen Yang paused. But Shen Zequin smiled and continued, "It hasn't been easy for the Imperial Army to be where they are today. But time changes and every dog has its day, so who can say for sure when it comes to the future? Without waiting for Chen Yang to answer, he lifted his robe and left. Ding Tao patted the snow off his shoulders and fell over to hang in mid-air. Swinging with his brush in his mouth, he gazed at Shen Zequin's back with a frown. On seeing this, Chen Yang asked, "What's the matter?" Ding Tao answered, "Don't you think he is a little sad today?" Chen Yang turned his head to see the corner of Shen Zequin's robe. He said, "Is that so? He seems fine to me. He's even smiling." Ding Tao fished out his book from his bosom and wrote a few characters while suspended in mid-air. He lamented, maybe it was because he had a fight with the second young master last night. That was quite the commotion from what I've heard. Feeling a little embarrassed, Chen Yang looked up and said, "Jin, didn't you teach him about the birds and the bees? From my calculations, this lad is already 16. In Liege, it'd be time for him to marry a wife." Jin did not reply. Chen Yang said, "Do you hear me? He has cotton stuffed in his ears." Ding Tao stuffed the book back into his bosom and turned back to remove the cotton in one of Jin's ears. He shouted, "Jingur! Chen Yang is calling you." Jin gave a start and nearly slipped down from above. He shoved Ding Tao's face away and frowned as he poked his head out to ask, "What?" Chen Yang pointed to Ding Tao and said, "Send him away. Sell him and add it to your wine budget this month." Jin grasped Ding Tao by the neck and said, "He can't sell for much going by this weight." There were movements inside the room, and all three men simultaneously fell silent. After a while, Xiao Qiye came out of the room. As he put on his clothes, he swept a glance around, then looked at Ding Tao. "De Gur will be coming to the capital in a few days." Xiao Qiye's lips hurt a little when he spoke. He pressed his tongue against it but gave up quickly. "There's no need to submit reports of trivial issues." Ding Tao nodded his head hard, like a little chick pecking at grains. After a moment's pause, Xiao Qiye asked, "Why are you still here?" Ding Tao scratched the back of his head in puzzlement. He looked at Chen Yang, then at Jin, and finally back at Xiao Qiye. He said, "Young master, I'm on duty today." Xiao Qiye questioned, "Where's the man I told you to keep an eye on?" Ding Tao said, He already left." Xiao Qiye said nothing. When Chen Yang led the horse over, Xiao Qiye flipped onto it. Just before he left, he pointed to Ding Tao and said, "Throw him out." Ding Tao had yet to climb up the horse. Before he could react to Xiao Qiye's words, he was already hoisted up by Chen Yang and Jin. The color drained from his face as he clutched his little book and said, "Please don't. Young master, young master. I did nothing wrong these days." He had already been tossed out. After throwing him out, Chen Yang stepped forward and said, "Master, Shifu should be arriving today." Without saying a word more, Xiao Qiye spurred his horse on and headed out of the city. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Shen Zequin did not go to the military drill grounds at Mount Feng. Instead, he braved the snow to return to the Temple of Penitence. Ji Gang had not seen him for several days, so he rushed to buy roast chicken after letting Shen Zequin in. It had been a while since Grand Tutor Qi last saw him, too. At this moment, he was holding a brush and squinting his eyes to write characters. On seeing Shen Zequin enter, he hurriedly threw the brush away and called out to him, "Lanzhou." Shen Zequin lifted his robe to sit upright opposite Grand Tutor Qi. Grand Tutor Qi said, "The Jinyi Wei's deployment order is about to be issued soon, right? Where do you want to go?" Shen Zequin replied, "The Imperial Carriage's office. Close to the Emperor." Grand Tutor Qi nodded. On seeing the wound on Shen Zequin's lips, he switched the topic and asked, "Has something happened outside lately?" After a moment of silence, Shen Zequin said, "Now that His Majesty has Hai Lianji to protect him, I fear that even a hopeless case can pose as a pillar of the state, much like a rotten wood pretending to be a pillar. Back then, when I Saved second young master Xiao, it was because the ascension of His Majesty to the throne was a foregone conclusion. Killing him would, on the contrary, mess up the wiki board. A messed up wiki board is nothing. What's to be feared is a messed up heart and mind. Grand Tutor Qi looked at him. Have you gained any new perspectives all these days you were staying by second young master Xiao's side? Shenzhequan wiped the ink stains on his fingertips and thought for a long time before saying, it's too much of a pity for him to be born after Xiao Jiming. It's fine if they can keep him under control in this life, but if they can't. Shenzhequan looked at Grand Tutor Qi, but did not continue his words. But Grand Tutor Qi said, Lanzhou, you still don't get it? Shenzhequan was slightly stunned. Grand Tutor Qi stood up and paced for 2 steps. Gazing at the snow in the courtyard, he suddenly let out a long sigh. You killed Jilei. Shenzhequan stopped wiping. In a rare philosophical state, Grand Tutor Qi said, Lanzhou, we are both trapped here. We live on hatred, but we mustn't let ourselves be killed by hatred. 5 years ago, you couldn't have done such an utterly ruthless act. But 5 years later, you can already take charge to do such a clean and efficient job of it. I imparted the classics to you, but I don't want you to be manipulated by hatred. It's hard to be righteous when you take the lives of the living. You won't be able to turn back if you fall too far. Without exorcising your inner demons, you will forever be trapped in a nightmare. Jilei deserves death, and it's still death for him even if you end him in one slash. Think about your days in Duan province. I have no wish to see you walk a cold-blooded and cold-hearted path. You said it's a pity that Xiao Qiye was born after Xiao Jiming. What I'm going to tell you is the exact opposite. Just imagine for a moment that Jimu is the heir apparent of the Prince of Liege today. Can there be no other reason for him to leave you in Chu capital other than a lack of alternatives? The sharp edge of a treasured sword comes only by honing it. Xiao Qiye is a sword. He has yet to notice it himself, but his elder brother has, for many years, placed high hopes on him. Liege has never been stingy with praises that he deserves either. If he's a son without a use, they would have chosen to dote on him to make him happy. But Xiao Jiming not only took him to battles, he even gave him a free hand in leading the troops. Since he's already left with no room for retreat, then was his handing over his younger brother really just to make him miserable? 5 years ago, in Liege, Xiao Qiye did not know how to exercise restraint, but now, he has already learned how to rein in his arrogance and willfulness. Everything learned from word of mouth can be superficial. It's only those who come to understand through their own sufferings that are the real masterstroke. Xiao Jiming is a great elder brother. Being born after Xiao Jiming is never the most pitiful thing about Xiao Qiye. Lanzhou, this brotherly sentiment should be something you understand the most. Yet it has now become the brotherliness you understand the least. Grand Tutor Qi paused for a long time, looking somewhat gloomy and depressed. Then he looked at Shenzhequan again and kneeled to pat Shenzhequan slowly on the head with his wizened palm. Teacher taught you the classics and gave you the courtesy name Lanzhou. Unruffled is the orchid that grows on stone steps. Boundless is the horizons of the boat that crosses the sea of misery. Wide is the heart that accommodates 100 rivers, and broad is the vision that encompasses 1,000 lakes. You're a good child. Killing is merely a means to an end. Hatred may be hard to eliminate, but your heart must never change. Lanzhou, oh Lanzhou, don't you still have your Shifu and teacher? Why must you force yourself into such a corner? It may not be a bad idea to just voice out your unhappiness these 5 years. Shenzhequan stared blankly at Grand Tutor Qi. 25 years ago, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince left. How I long every day and resent every night, for not being able to take that blow for him, to kill the enemy with my own hands. I stewed in resentment until I turned into the state. I became your teacher. Grand Tutor Qi choked a little with emotion. I want you to kill my enemy for me, but I can't have you turn into a blade who has forgotten who you are. You are a person, Lanzhou. Don't forget your carefree days in Duan province. Although Jimu died, he didn't die because of you. It's heaven's decree. What is past is past. You did not escape and survived the Hashi sinkhole to shoulder a sin. You are the continuation of existence for him, for those 40,000 soldiers. Silly child, Ji Gang has been so careful, so how did he still let you lead yourself so astray that you'd blame the wrong person? Shen Zequan closed his eyes. He heard Jimu's calls, and he thought of Xiao Qiye's scent. At this very moment, he finally understood why he was so infatuated with that scent. That was the brilliance of the scorching sun, the light that had allowed him to escape from the Hashi sinkhole. Even if it were only for a moment, it would allow him to forget the tides of blood and the rain of arrows, to forget the cold and the corpses. He could no longer remember the carefree days in Duan province. They were too distant. So distant that they seemed to be the memories of his past life. He could no longer even recall Jimu's heartily laughing face. He had plunged into a nightmare, tormenting himself every single moment. Jimu was dead. Why wasn't he the one to die that day? The fact that his Shifu did not blame him was the greatest reproach of all. What he could not struggle free of was the sense of guilt that would haunt him for the rest of his life. There was no way he could tell Grand Tutor Qi candidly that, with the passage of time, he had finally killed off himself. Xiao Qiye was the reflection on the other end who had everything he did not have. He observed Xiao Qiye, clumsily trying to imitate him so that he could let himself look more like a person. He could not tell anyone that the Shen Zequan, living in this body, was a repulsive killer, that he was already standing at the edge of the abyss. Shen Zequan lowered his eyes under Grand Tutor Qi's palm like a child respectfully listening to his teachings. He listened devoutly. Yet, it was in this very instant that he realized he was no longer able to shed tears. His throat throbbed slightly. Eventually, he said, feeling comforted, "It's, as teacher said." *******. 3 days later, the Jinyi Wei's deployment order was announced. Han Cheng, the original assistant commander of the 8 Great Training Divisions, was transferred over to be the commander-in-chief of the Jinyi Wei, while staff from the Jinyi Wei's 12 offices were reassigned. Shen Zequan was redeployed from the domesticated elephants office to the imperial carriages office, and Ji Qingqing was promoted from company commander to judge. Shen Zequan's new authority token had the word Emperor's Entourage. The imperial carriages office was a great place to go, since being close to the emperor would make it easiest for him to get into the emperor's good graces. Xiao Qiye, originally the imperial army's viceroy, also took on the post of the 8 Great Training Divisions commander, thereby legitimizing his authority over the patrols of the Chu capital. After that one night, he welcomed Zouqian Kaiu and stayed at the military drill grounds in Mount Feng. Even until the time Shen Zequan left the imperial army's residence, both men never saw each other again. "Master," Chen Yang attended to Xiao Qiye at the latter's side and said in a soft voice, "The original arrangement was the domesticated steeds office. Who would have expected it to be the imperial carriages office when the deployment order was issued?" Xiao Qiye was solving a Chinese rings puzzle. His hand movements slowed as he said, "That could only mean he didn't care for it." Chen Yang said, "But isn't going to work in the emperor's presence makes it much easier for him to meet with misfortune that could cost him his life?" Secretariat Elder Hai was the one who urged the former emperor to kill him back then, demanding repayment right on the crux of the matter. His heart is not on carrying out his duties lawfully. Xiao Qiye tossed away the rings and said, "Ji Lei is dead. Han Cheng is a stand-in from the 8 Great Training Divisions. The Jinyi Wei is now without a master. What do you think he wants to do by stepping up now?" Chen Yang pondered for a moment and said, "If he becomes. If he succeeds," Xiao Qiye looked towards the military drill grounds, "then he will have his claws and fangs." Chen Yang did not venture to speak further. A little while later, Xiao Qiye continued, "The Ji clan dominates the Jinyi Wei. He has Qi as his shield. It's simply effortless for him to move up using past relationships and old sentiments as his blade. Although we can't get our men in, we can limit his chances. There has to be a justification for getting a promotion and riches. If nothing goes wrong before the emperor, then he can be held back from making any moves. Since the imperial army now has the responsibility of patrolling, then why trouble the Jin Yue? Chen Yang said, this subordinate understands it now. Xiao Qiye drank a mouthful of water, thought for a moment and then said, pick a low-key place and lay the table for a feast. Him and I, we'll pick our fights and we'll still have our meals. He pursed the part of his lips that had been bitten. After all, we could be considered fellow disciples of the same school of martial arts. End chapter.